first and foremost, this is a public meeting. I know that we have one member of the public, students, coming sincere. Thank you very much for coming.
Well, a question, it's not listed on the website that this meeting's happening tonight, nor was it listed on the finance committee or the calendar. So
Yeah, I don't-
where was it published publicly that this
Earl-
meeting was
Earl
happening?
Clark's not here this evening, but we'll certainly ask why it wasn't, because I know we posted it. Matter of fact, we told it at the meeting.
You did
last
many meetings, council meetings,
Yeah.
but it's interesting that no Republican candidates are here tonight.
Well, I spoke to Mr. Hanlon last night, explained that to him, and I also announced it at the public meeting last night.
Yeah, and actually you announced it, I think, in February too.
Yeah, so, I don't know why it wasn't on the website, but you're here and you will memorialize the hearing. And tonight's meeting is just an opportunity for the borough to kind of explain why they proposed the budget. And if you all have any questions, or Sue, if you have any questions, you can certainly ask.
Is there any handouts of the budget or anything?
You know what?
We have here handouts, we have for the budget presentation as well as the budget, the full document and the amendment. This is the same things that we had at last
It
time.
should be on the website too.
that is, I already
Yeah.
this one, this wasn't.
This is an amendment.
Okay, this is
So that
Yes.
being said, Stanley, we'll let you begin with the slideshow, and then if anyone has any questions during the slideshow, kind of hold it, and then we'll answer any questions that either the Councilman Ziffridge or Councilman Murphy have. That's great. Okay, Stanley.
Okay.
It's your show.
Well, thank you all for coming. Thank all the department heads for coming. This is like the third or fourth year we've been doing this. And basically, we're going to give you a summary of the budget. We have copies of the budget available for anybody that wants them. And basically, we're talking about the highlights of the budget this year. The budget will be online, the proposed budget, and will be online. And as soon as we get the approval from the state, which I think we're very close, we'll be able to adopt the budget. We're also waiting for the county to, we'll talk about this a little bit later, we're also waiting for the county to actually certify the tax rate, which they hope to do, I guess, sometime this month, May? June? Early May. And once that certification is done, then we'll be fine. We can adopt the budget as well. So there's two things we have to go through. County setting the, establishing the tax rate, and the state reviewing the budget and giving their okay. So our goals, as always, are to minimize current tax levy without reduction of services. The whole function of government is to provide services that people can't provide to themselves, such as paving roads, sewer, police, fire, things of that nature. So we want to make sure that we provide those services, but we do so in the most cost-effective manner. We prioritize our spending reductions to minimize the impact of providing those services. We try to, make sure that what we're doing in the most reasonable and economic way, but also maintain that level of service that the taxpayers have come to expect. We have to meet state guidelines on spending, and also to meet the guidelines with regard to levy caps. Our budget is within the levy cap and the cap restrictions, and we're pretty proud of that, given all the different variables that go into making up a budget. We achieve fiscal stability by considering both the short and long-term financial impact of this year's budget decisions. An example, last year our budget was kind of tight and we had desires to do some road programs, but we couldn't, because adding on at that time, it would have increased our costs, and we already had some debt service in there. We didn't want to increase our debt service. This year we had a lot of debt service come off, meaning notes or bonds that we used to fund projects 10, 15, 20 years ago are paid off, which gave us some room in our budget where we could add some additional expense going forward to do capital items that are very expensive, okay? Such as a road program. We're doing a road program this year. We're doing our park renovations due to Hurricane Sandy and some of those other problems that we incurred. Some lighting improvements in Shrewsbury Avenue because of hurricane damage. We're going to add some features to Bellhaven Park, and we're doing some repairs at Riverside Gardens that was due to the skateboarders and some vandalism. So all those things, they're capital items, and we're able to do that this year because we paid off some debt, which made room in our budget where we could add some debt without increasing the burden to the taxpayer. Another issue with affecting our taxes and our budget is the fact that we lost value in the properties. The ratables went down. So therefore, our revenue goes down. And that was mainly due to adjustments in our tax rates based on tax appeals. And we have to make good on those appeals. Some of these appeals go back 2, 3, 4 years. So we were able to accomplish that by making some adjustments in our budget. We have budgeted for those appeals that have been adjudicated and that we have to pay or give credits to, but that does affect the amount of revenue we take in. One of the things that the council is trying to do, or has taken steps to do, to prevent this from occurring in the future, is to bond for a re-evaluation of all the properties, which will adjust the values of the properties and reduce the amount of tax appeals we see in the near future. This is usually done every 10 years. Monmouth County, Red Bank is participating in a pilot project here in the county where once we do this revaluation, the tax assessor can go in and look at 20% of the properties each year for 5 years and adjust those rates based on current values so that we don't have to wait 10 years to make these adjustments and come into this situation where properties are over-assessed and you get a lot of tax appeals.
Excuse me, so you got that 433,293 doesn't match to what you have in the budget on the table here. What's the number you
There was a resolution that was amended in the budget. We had the CA review it, and we had a few changes that was increased from 430.
So what's the real number?
So is that,
433.
that's the corrected slide?
Yes.
Yeah, we got word
After the
today.
resolution that was passed.
Yeah, we got word today before we made these, after we made these copies that there were some adjustments.
At the last meeting, yes,
So.
before the meeting.
So that is the correct number?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the correct one, and these documents will be amended. So the loss of revenues was 433,293. This resulted in an operating budget decrease of 217,800, or 1.3%. And our tax levy thus has to be adjusted because we have to make that up. We have expenditures that we have to make, and although we lost the revenue, we have to, despite the cuts that we've made in our budgets and the things that we've changed to try and do things better and at greater expense, the revenue didn't support us not increasing the amount that we have to raise in by tax levy. The major changes in the operating budget were the following. Our debt service decreased almost $500,000, $448,519. Our police department operations decreased, largely due to the fact a number of senior department members retired. So that makes room in the budget to bring in people to replace them at a lower rate, get us back to full staff, but it does reduce our costs. And there are some operating changes as well. Our public works increased by $174,640. Public works was, last year and in the prior years, we were really hard pressed to keep the department fully staffed because of budget constraints. This year we made the conscious effort that not only did we have to fully staff the department, but also fund some necessary work that needed to be done, some repair work, some replacement of equipment, and some infrastructure improvements because it was needed, because we hadn't prioritized that in prior years because of other concerns. So that budget was probably the largest increase of all the departments. Tax appeals increased by $135,000, and again, we're addressing that with the revaluation. And insurance increased Not by much. I think a year ago, we were six figures. Now we're down to 80,000, which was, we implemented some savings, which we'll talk about later, last year, and that is resulting in us having a much lesser increase in insurance this year. The impact of municipal taxation, our proposed rate is 0.5707. The proposed increase in the tax rate is really 0.0157, and that to the average residential taxpayer with an assessment of $387,440. One penny equals $38. Excuse me. 1 penny of the tax rate on the average residence is equals 38.74, and the penny on the tax rate as revenue to the borough is $220,399. For us to drop a penny, we have to cut that amount of money from the budget, and we have made cuts which brought it down to that point. We're currently in the negotiations with our collective bargaining agreements with the police and the blue collar and the unionized workers. Both budgets, both contracts expired on December 31st. So I know the negotiations are ongoing, but we have set a reserve in the budget to accommodate the results of those negotiations. And part of those negotiations is looking for cost benefits to our health programs, because our employees contribute to the health of their health programs. And any savings that the borough realizes, the employees also realize, because they do pay a percentage of their costs. So we're looking at constant ways, and we'll talk about a couple of those things that we have changed last year, which brought some savings. Our goal is to contain the cost, to attain long-term savings, and get attract and retain qualified people. We're an employer that we have to retain people that can do the job and get the job done effectively. And it behooves us to be competitive somewhat. We are not necessarily the Cadillac municipality when it comes to salaries. But we have some great employees here that work very hard, and we're trying to at least give them a living wage that we can retain these employees and have them keep working for the borough of Riverhead. Our insurance premiums in 2013, as we talked about, we made some adjustments. We looked at various different options and introduced some changes. The borough introduced a lower cost optional health plan in July 1st of last year. So now employees can choose between the plan that is offered through QualCare through our joint insurance fund and another plan which is the provider is Aetna, so that they have options. They can choose a $5 copay, $10 copay, different options depending on your needs and your concerns. We also have been working on making sure that what we provide our employees is in line with the current changes in our state statutes with regard to health benefits to employees, as well as new federal statutes, federal regulations that are coming down as a result of the quote Obamacare legislation. We implemented changes to the prescription drug plan beginning April 1st to achieve savings, including Express Scripts, where instead of going to the pharmacy and getting your renewal every 30 days, now we can take care of those maintenance drugs by mail. There's a cost savings to the employee because the copay now pays for 90 days worth of prescription pills instead of 30 days, and it makes a savings to the borough as well. We also continue searching for other options to the health benefit plans, and at the same time keeping these new requirements, addressing these new requirements. Loss of revenue, we can continually track and analyze the revenue collections throughout the year. Every department head meeting, my department heads here will attest. we always say, okay, review your permits, fees, review your fees that you charge, make sure that our fees are consistent with what's being charged elsewhere. As we don't want to gouge people, but we also don't want to be giving away the bargain here in Red Bank. We want to make sure that whatever revenue that we can charge for services is appropriate and that we are charging appropriately. We do have little control over the fees that are paid to the borough for optional things. For instance, at one point there was a decline in revenue from construction because there was a slowdown in construction. Well, that year we may be low. Then at the end of the year, we have a boom in construction where a lot of permit fees come in. Well, that's all deposited that year. Next year, we may not have that boom, but we still have the inspections from the prior year. So there are some things that sort of go leaps and bounds as to the revenue. Even though the revenue is supported, we have to make sure we budget appropriately so that we don't take advantage of a spike and then end up the next year with a big hole in the budget. And that runs through any of the fee-supported activities that we have. Although the local revenues may decline from year to year, it does not usually equate to a reduction in services. You can't reduce our police or our fire. We can't reduce our public works. You still have to have those people out there when the trees come down in the street, or the street has to get swept, or we have to plow the snow, or what have you. Okay. Any questions so far? Our other expense lines, the police budget decreased by 2.15%, or $112,645, and that's due mainly due to the retirement of many senior officers. Our debt service was reduced by $448,519, which is about 13.78%. And as I said, the borough, we track our debt service, and we wait until there's reductions in debt before we add debt. Our debt service has been flat. I forget how much we're allowed to. We're allowed to borrow up to what, 3%? Pardon me?
4.5.
4.5%. And we're 0.592. Even though we're allowed to go to 4.5, we're like 1/9 of what, or 1/9, 1/8 of what we could borrow. And we haven't been over 1, I don't know how long. And what it is we look at what comes off, and then we put stuff on, and we time our projects so that we don't have a big spike in our capital budget and our debt service. We're continuing to review all the budget lines for further reductions. Not only trying to find ways of doing things differently, but also in seeking out shared services and other ways of accomplishing the goal, or doing away with things that we're doing that maybe we shouldn't be doing. We've met with all department heads to review the budget requests in depth. We've had many hours with meeting with the new CFO and going over item by item, what the line items were, what the expenditures were from last year, what the requests were for this year, and whether or not the requests were justified. And then we recommended the Finance Committee. The department heads certainly go over the budgets with their department chairs before they're submitted, and then after the meeting with the CFO, there may be additional meeting, and that's based on that process we come up with the draft budget. We've also asked our departments, should there be necessary, identify what other areas we might be able to make some savings should something happen where we need to further decrease the budget. Okay. State aid loss. We lost state aid big time around 2009 to 2010. We lost over $500,000 in state aid. And we've adjusted for that. The state aid has not really increased since that time. It stayed flat. And for a town that has the largest tax exempt properties per square mile, I think outside of Freehold or Freehold Township, that's tough because most of our properties and some of the properties that have the highest demand for our services don't pay taxes, don't pay property taxes. A hospital, broken schools, Salvation Army, visiting nurse,
Dr. Parker, Dr.
yeah,
Parker Clinic,
the health plan,
theaters,
New Jersey Transit.
Jersey Transit.
So there's a lot of properties that demand services. I mean, the train station alone, although there are transit police, our police department certainly has a lot of activity out of there. We have a lot of activity at the hospital.
Red Bank Ave?
So losing state aid really hurt us back
Stanley, just
then.
to clear it up, we haven't had state aid in how many years?
That's not true.
I'm
Six.
just asking.
We had state aid.
We have state aid, but it was reduced about 5-6 years ago by 500,000.
So
And it has not been increased since. It's
We've
stayed
never-
flat.
We've never gone back to that level.
Haven't gone back.
What state aid did we get this year, how much? Or last year, how about last year? This year probably.
This year, we're anticipating the same as last year, $2,011,688. But it used to be $2,528,525 in 2009, and that was a reduction from the prior year. And normally, it used to go up. It used to be increased. And then it dropped a little bit, and then they cut it $500,000.
So the amount of state aid that we've received since 2010 has remained flat.
Yes. Despite the fact the state has shifted more obligations on us.
Since 2010.
So the actual state aid received versus the statutory amount, the statutory amount, we should be well over $3 million, about 3.7 million, somewhere in there. And we've been flat at a reduction of 2 point whatever, almost 2 million. So that does affect us. And we've contacted our local legislators, and they have not been too helpful with that. So we're just glad they haven't reduced it anymore. Our U.S., we do apply for grants, various grants. We aren't even talking capital grants. These are just operational grants. We get our Older Americans grant, which helps offset some of the costs of our senior center. We have a community stewardship and center program. I believe that's the forestry. The forestry. And then we have the drunk driving enforcement grant for the police. We have a clean communities grant through our public works. And we have a bulletproof vest grant for the police officers.
That's the bulletproof vest, chief.
Yes.
The bulletproof vest thing is every year, it just hasn't come through, right?
It is every year. One of them is a reimbursement grant after we purchase the vest based on how many we purchase, and the other one is just an award that we get from the state once a year. And we just don't know the amounts until, one amount we don't know until we make the purchase, and the other one we don't know until we get it from the state.
Right, good.
And we have applied for other grants, and in some years we're successful, some years we aren't. I know there's a grant out from the fire department through FEMA. We have some other grant applications that we put through, but they're competitive grants. And there's committees that meet elsewhere that decide, who scores higher and gets the money. So we do apply for grants all the time. Shared services. We have quite a few shared services. In fact, we were cutting edge in shared services. We've been shared servicing, I'll say some that come to mind later, but through Monmouth County Shared Services, we do cooperative purchasing for salt brine, fire department vehicle maintenance. We use the Monmouth County vehicle fleet maintenance garages, our traffic light maintenance. They maintain our light at Broad and Monmouth, and we've been talking to them about maintaining the lights at the train station. However, they say that equipment is too old. If the equipment gets upgraded, they'll maintain it for us. Tinton Falls, we do truck washing facilities. The DEP came down and said, hey, you have to have a certified truck washing facility that reclaims the dirty water. Well, to construct one of those would be quite expensive. So we do a shared service agreement with Tinton Falls. We have Eatontown Shared Services to take our leaf and brush. We were paying people before to do that, now we do deal with Eatontown. Animal control, we do Fairhaven, Shrewsbury Township, and Shrewsbury Borough. Public schools, we have a shared service agreement for snow plowing, salting and brining of the parking lots for snow removal and vehicle maintenance. We have a uniform fire code services for Little Silver, and we have uniform construction code inspection services for Little Silver. Construction code inspection we've been doing for about 22 years. Fire code, I think we're in the beginning of our 5th year. Municipal court, Shrewsbury Township, we handle municipal court duties for Shrewsbury Township here as well, under shared service. Some of our older shared services include, we used to provide health services to the surrounding towns. We did Red Bank, Fairhaven, Rumson, Little Silver, and Shrewsbury, or Rumson and Little Silver. When our health officer retired, who had a master's in public health and whatnot, we we joined with the other communities in the Monmouth County Regional Health Commission, #1, which is centered in the Red Cross building in Tinton Falls. And basically that's a cooperative of towns that work together to provide health services to their communities. And there's an option of either using them or going to the county. And we found that it's more economical for us to do it with these other towns than the county. County is just one, based on a certain percentage of a mill, actually per capita cost based on the population. And with the Regional Health Commission, it's based on activity. And
the Regional Health Commission also provides additional services that the county health, Board of Health only provides statutorily.
yes, the county just provides statutory health services, where the Regional Health provides the same level of service that we were getting through our own health department, which included health screenings in the schools, lead abatement, testing and monitoring, a few other things that we take a big advantage of here in this town with our populace and the nature of our construction. Another, we call it shared service, is our Central Regional Health Insurance Fund and our Monmouth County Joint Insurance Fund. Back probably 24, 25 years ago, our CFO, Red Bank Bruce Lumbersage, was instrumental in working with other communities and founding the Monmouth County Regional Health Insurance Fund and the Central Jersey Health Insurance Fund. And whereas the towns get together and pool their resources to provide health benefits and to provide insurance, property insurance, casualty insurance, motor vehicle insurance, and there's a municipal excess liability fund as well, and an environmental joint insurance fund. So they insure us for everything from environmental spills at our fuel pumps, or should one of our trucks leak gasoline in somebody's parking lot, to health benefits. And we keep checking to see if we can do that cheaper by going out to the private industry. But when we go out to private industry, that profit piece of the puzzle always kicks in. And we actually get, on our health insurance fund, we get, what do we call it, dividends, based on our experience. When our costs go down, we get dividends for the unused portion of the funds. Improvements for the future. Our tax collection rate was increased in 2013 to 97.81%. This helps us mitigate the increase, which helps us to reduce the amount that we have to reserve for uncollected taxes. We're also in the process of auctioning off our surplus firehouse. We have found that due to some reallocation of equipment and selling of some unused equipment or underutilized equipment, we could do away with one of the firehouses and save the cost of both repairing, maintaining, and operating that firehouse. But we still have that fire apparatus available. We're reviewing contracts with the Monmouth County Regional Health Commission, as I talked about, and the Visiting Nurse Service, who also provides some services. We meet with them every year to talk about savings, and we're pretty happy with the service that they provide us right now. And if you think about all the food service establishments, all the health-related type activities that go on in this town, and all the like special events and festivals, I don't remember in my 30 years of being here, 35 years almost of being here, of any outbreak, widespread outbreak of any food poisoning or health issue, and we've been pretty good with that, maintaining that level of safety. We're evaluating overall methods of delivering services to residents, and we research alternatives. You know, everybody takes part in trade associations. I know, you know, the building inspectors, the public works workers, the police chief, the tax collectors. We all get together with our peers in other communities and talk about different ways of doing things, and you know, picking other people's brains when we have ideas or problems. Our allocation, tax dollar allocation, only 28% of our tax dollar goes to our municipal operation. The bulk of it goes to the schools. The school levy is 55%. The county follows with 14%. County open space tax levy is 1%. And our municipal library is 2% of our operation. And that sort of stays pretty stable. The one thing about this new revow situation is that in the past, when we had these tax appeals, we would have to front the full amount of the appeal, even though a good portion of that tax dollar was going to the schools or the county. The taxpayers of Red Bank would have to front that appeal. So that's why it's very important that we do this revow, and that will eliminate that big chunk of money that is going out of here because of tax appeals. Our tax dollar distribution, although we levy about $40 million, we collect about $39.9 million based on that percentage of collection. The amount collected was reduced by tax appeals. That amount was approximately $500,000. So we paid the following levies out to various entities in 2013. $13.7 million of the money we collected went to the school district. $8.6 million goes to the regional high school. $5.8 million went to the county. And our special improvement district is funded through an additional assessment paid by the property owners for those properties that are within the district. They're self-assessed. They self-establish the rate, and then we collect it and then pay it out to them. So we don't give tax dollars to them. We assess them an additional rate that is collected by us and then paid back to them. So that amount was $512,120. Some of our considerations are the revenue that we have to raise is the amount of the tax levy is the amount to be raised by taxation. That amount is simply the tax rate multiplied by the overall property value of the town. When the rateable is reduced, the tax rate increases. This would happen even if all other factors in the budget remain constant. In 2013, our rateable base decreased, largely due to tax appeals, which we talked about. The amount of taxable or rateable reduction was $24,155,725. So the proposed 2014 municipal tax rate is 0.5707. Again, this is subject to once the revaluation is done and the rate established, not the revaluation, once the rate is finalized and certified by the county, then we can finalize this number. Some of the other revenue considerations, some of the fees we collect, we have to pay some of these out. Our UCC fees are dedicated to Uniform Construction Code fees are dedicated for construction code purposes, for inspecting and doing the inspections that people pay for with these fees. Life hazard use fees are fees charged by under the Uniform Fire Code for buildings that require annual inspections by the fire marshal's office. And some of those inspections take days. Hospital, we have to inspect 4 times a year. And just one inspection takes probably a week just to get through the building. Court fines and costs. People pay tickets, and there's charges that we collect based on fines and court costs. Some of those costs go out to other agencies by statute to pay for other funds. But we keep a percentage of that court revenue. Marriage license fees, dog and cat license fees, burial fees are all collected through the registrar's office. We have taxi permits and other fees collected by the clerk's office, vendor licenses, things of that nature. Some of these services, all the services we provide: police protection, fire protection, EMS protection, garbage collection, storm cleanup, storm sewer maintenance and inspection, which is a new state requirement that we do on a frequent basis. Our parks and recreation programs, building inspections, code enforcement inspections, public information, registrar type activities, our court services, recreational programs, street lighting. These are all services we provide. And not to mention snow removal and whatever other emergency comes up, the borough that gets the first call. Okay. Our water sewer utility. We have two utilities. We have a parking utility and a water sewer utility. This has to be by statute self-liquidating. In other words, has to pay for itself. So the revenue supports the operations. And we have two water treatment water plants, one at Chestnut Street and one at Tower Hill. At the top of Tower Hill, we have our reservoir. The plants take well water and treat it to make it safe to drink. And we hook it up into the reservoir, pump it to the reservoir, and then it's fed throughout the town by our distribution system by gravity feed. You'll see in some towns that have big water towers. We happen to have a little hill called Tower Hill, and when the borough acquired the property, they hollowed out the hill and put the reservoir inside. So we have water sewer rates that we charge for use of the water and use of the sewers. And sewer rates are based on the percentage of water of your water bill. And that maintains both our sanitary sewers and our storm sewers. Okay. Our connection fees help pay for the infrastructure improvements that we have to do, help offset our costs for installing sewer lines or relining sewer lines or repairing sewer lines or what have you. We have full-time employees, both administrative and union. We are required to have a licensed operator, and we have debt service. Any debt service with regard to the water utility is separate debt service of the utility paid by utility revenue. We have to purchase water due to the fear of the state years ago that we were going to deplete the aquifer. And I think it also coincided with them building the reservoir down in Manasquan, that they forced us to buy water from this Manasquan Regional Water, I don't know the agency, but New Jersey Water Authority. And so we have to buy water from New Jersey American, I think it was about 6 months out of the year, approximately. So we actually shut our plants down in November. During their lull period, their slow period, we have to buy water from them. Their peak period is in the summer when the beaches and the shore towns are very active and we have an influx of people. The demand on their system is greater, so they force us to buy water from them in their off-season. And that helps keep the aquifer good. We still have to distribute that water to the houses through our distribution system. During that time, we do maintenance on the plants and keep the plants up. Our parking utility. This also has to be self-liquidating. The revenue supports the operations. And operations include maintaining the parking meters, collecting the revenue, repairing the meters as necessary, making sure the signage is maintained, establishing the hours, enforcing the hours. We have parking lease arrangements for long-term parking. We have parking permits. We have some sidebar agreements that, some parking lease arrangements which made it safe or made it economical for people to establish businesses here where if they didn't have these lease arrangements, they wouldn't have brought their business to town. And so it stabilized our downtown at a time when it was necessary, and some of these are still going. For instance, the Globe Court Park Garage is leased to the hospital. This is the second time, second 20-year period that they've leased it. They've actually paid for 125% of the garage, 125% of the debt service for the first lease, and the new lease is, I think, about 8 or 9 years into the 20-year term. So that's a strong lease. At the end of this lease, we give them that building for $1, and they'll have a 4-year-old garage that's going to need a lot of repairs, but we'll have collected the revenue from it for 4 years. Other operational costs are, of course, collecting the fees, plowing the lots, maintaining the lots, doing repairs in the lots, striping, things of that nature. Okay. So, that's sort of a summary of the budget this year. 4 years ago, we were here, we were talking about layoffs and cutting of services and closing, going to 4-day work weeks. We think we've turned the corner on that. And with some adjustments, I think we might, if things go the way they're going, we'll probably be in better shape next year. But this is certainly a well thought out budget, very involved. I gotta give Eugenia Boulos, who just came on board mid-January, a lot of credit for getting up to speed quickly and helping us craft this budget. Being new here, meeting everybody for the first time and learning about the operation, she's done a masterful job in getting this all together. So, any questions or anything you want to add?
On the summary sheet, it says the balance of outstanding debt bonds for parking and utilities is 0. But on the detail sheet, I think it still shows bond balances. Do we have no debt outstanding for the public parking utility?
It's not good for the power utility, not for 2014.
Not for 24. Ah, that's great then.
Anyone else have any questions?
Yes, Elizabeth.
I was wondering about the revaluation. You're saying that like the schools get their money and then you do a tax appeal and you have to pay that out of the municipal funds because the schools have already gotten the money, the library's already gotten the money. If a reval takes place, is it likely that next year we'll get
Well,
less money?
To try and simplify, one of the reasons why there's been some tax appeals and successful tax appeals is the value of the properties, what our assessments, where our valuation of the properties were, the ratio was like 1.10, 1.10, 1.11. In other words, 110 or 111% of what the true value is. And the market dictates that, and over a period it crawls up. Usually when you get close to 100, 1.0, we start looking at maybe, and then sometimes it drops again. But once it goes over, then, hopefully it's going to drop, but it didn't. It kept coming up. So, and then the values were going down. It got up to this point, and then the values went down. So, and that's sort of what causes that big gap. So the only way to address that is with their evaluation. Once that reevaluation goes through, then there'll be what they call a true assessment. It'll be, all right, here's the current market value of the properties. And there's no more differential in the ratio, and therefore no more basis for appeals.
Kind of makes the playing field level, so we won't have this every year. So we can continue, so you won't have to worry about it, oh my God, oh my God. So that's what the reval does. It costs the town to do that, but after a certain amount of time, a lot of towns start to do that to make the playing field level, because it starts to offset the budget. The tax rate starts to bounce. So once we do a reval, what it is what it is. According to the state, the county, whoever comes in to do it. Just makes it more of a level playing field. So so you won't have that.
I mean, it used to cost about $500,000 to do the revamp. So towns were reluctant to do it every 5 years, it just costs too much, so we wait and see how it panned out. Now with this new program, which Monmouth County is a pilot, with this new program, once the reval is done, the assessor can look at up to 20% of the properties each year. 20% this
And
year.
if I may, I can look at 100% of the properties, but 20% have to be inspected.
Okay.
So I can look at everyone's property.
And Mitch, did I explain it right? I'm sorry, I didn't see you back there. Did I kind of like explain the black and white issue?
Fine.
In fact, probably what we should do is, I normally do this in the beginning, I forgot. So let's have the department heads sort of introduce themselves and what you're responsible for. So maybe that will prompt some questions because they'll know who's here. Okay? So Gary, Eugenia, why don't you start?
Eugenia Fuller, CFO.
I'm Gary Watson, Assistant Administrator, Director of Public Works and Parking.
John Drucker, Assistant Construction Official.
And Elizabeth McDermott, Acting Director at the Library.
Anne Reynolds, Senior Center. Donna Barr, Director of Planning and Zoning.
Ramon Christian, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Darren McMillan, Police Chief.
Mitchell Elias, Tax Assessor.
Francis Pastoriza, Court Administrator.
Tommy Wells, Fire Chief.
Joseph Ottawas, First Deputy Fire Chief.
And Tom, I should say, Tom is also our OEM Director and Assistant Fire Marshal.
Emergency management.
Yeah, OEM, Office of Emergency Management Director. So any other questions?
It looks like the number of employees went down from last year, 161 employees down to 158. Yet the budget went up like 179, minus 733, went up 187,000. Are all these positions filled right now? And why did it go so high if you're losing people?
We filled 5 vacancies in Public Works. We also lost some positions. We lost some part-time positions. I don't know if we lost any full-time positions this year. Not in Public Works.
Lost what?
We lost positions. And we actually have a part-timer acting collector, which we budgeted to replace that position, but we haven't gotten somebody yet. So we do still have some vacancies.
I mean, I think what that budget reflects is that many employees are wearing more hats throughout the state, but also the economic recession that we've been in. So you see many of these directors who are sitting to your right doing more with less, and hopefully with our fiscal responsibility that we've kind of exhibited the last couple of years, we're going to be able to improve the growth of Red Bank as well as the future of Red Bank. So that's a fair question.
Yes.
Yes. Can I ask the director's questions? Hello. Just from dealing with the school board and students and their parents with the parks, games and playing baseball and everything. What is the number of students that are active in the Parks and Recs program? Is it exclusively just open to Red Bank resident children?
No, it's not exclusively open to Red Bank residents. Actually, I think my statistics that I did last was, I think 62% of the residents are from Red Bank, and the remainder are from 22 other towns.
Now, would it make sense to, instead of having all these separate teams, you have the charter school has their team, the public school has their teams, to maybe give grants to the charter school and the public school so they can have more money to do other programs? Because I know the public school, we lost our track program due to budget constraints. And the track program is one of the big things where Red Bank students excel in, not just in the high school, but in the college. And unfortunately, it wasn't the board's decision, it was up to the principal and the athletics director, what programs they were going to cut. Would it be more efficient to, instead of running all the rec programs, not saying everyone, but some of them, and then granting money to the charter school and granting money to the public school, so all the children can maybe put their eggs more in their basket, instead of having these multiple teams,
I'm sorry, so just so I understand what you're saying, are you saying that it would be more efficient for recreation to give its funds to the schools instead of running programs? Is that what you're saying?
Some programs, because if you think about it, if you have a child and they're playing for the rec and they're playing for the school, they're going to multiple games, they're going to multiple practices,
I got you.
right? So,
So let me explain to you my thought about that process. So recreation typically is for every and anyone. And so when you have school teams, there's typically a limit on the amount of children that they can choose to participate in any sort of programs. Like for example, the Red Bank Middle School just had softball. They have a softball program. And they had approximately 40 children try out for the program. And unfortunately, they weren't able to accept all of those children. So only the best of the best were selected to participate on the school teams. So what recreation does is we provide the opportunity for every child, regardless of their skill or ability, or even their grade level, to participate. So most schools start their sporting programs probably in the 5th grade. Recreation starts at pre-K. So we capture all of the children from pretty much birth to high school in the program that we encompass. So, I mean, ideally that would be it would be great if we could help the schools fund their programs, but we're here in the sense when those programs are not available, they can come back to the borough for our recreation program, so they'll always have a place to participate.
I think I can say honestly that there wouldn't be a limit or a cap on the number of students playing if we had the funds, or we could field a junior team, a varsity team, and even like a freshman team.
I don't think
The
that's
problem with
fair.
that is just, my experience in that, having raised 3 kids through the public school, is the schools allow 1 team with a maximum number of kids. So, because they compete in the league with other schools, with other teams. It's not like, okay, we could have 3 teams this year, the other schools only have 1. Well, we only have slots where your team is playing that 1 team.
Well,
So you gotta fit into that league too. It's just,
yeah, and the public school's on a budget just like we are. I mean, we give them 55%, which is 13.7 million. It's your choice to cut your programs, just like it's our choice to cut our programs. Look what almost happened to the library. I'm just, or whatever, but that's your choice.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
we have
I
cut
know,
programs
but
in the
for us
past.
to turn around and just fund you more, but to me, if they can't do A, B, and C in the schools, they can always come to the programs in Red Bank where everybody plays. So, because like we're under strict budget constraints. Same thing happens at the schools. That's why you don't have most of your programs. Or what was happening a couple years ago, that parents would pay in to their kids, whether it was basketball or field hockey. I know that took place when budget constraints really came out like 4 or 5 years ago, when the levy and all this, and everybody was in a frantic panic. But it's a choice that we have to make, including the school board and the school. That they choose to cut those programs, they choose to cut them because they can't afford them, or they're not productive enough, or they just can't afford it. Basically is what it comes down to. Same thing here. Same thing here with every department that we have here, especially in Parks and Rec. So,
Municipalities are not allowed to give out grants. Everything, the taxes, whatever tax we give to the library and to the schools, it has to do by statute. And there are grants available that the schools can look for.
Oh, we excel in a lot of grants. We do a lot.
Private industry. they're
Oh, yeah,
ready.
we have many grants. We did lose the 21st century grant last year, so that nixed, we had to come back. We nixed on the after-school program. We're up for it again, and God willing, we get it. There was, like Councilman said, before I was on the school board, they canceled the sports program, and then they had that foundation. So there is a history of the parents coming together and doing what to do, because again, everybody's under these crazy constraints. I mean, the school board taxes, I'll say it is ridiculous. It's a high amount of money, but it's cut back. I mean, you really can't say that we're frivolous. We're one of the lowest paid school districts to our employees. But again, as you guys have the same problem here, you want to retain employees. You just don't want to pay for cheap employees. You want people with value.
and so you know what the good part is, and I don't mean to, you know what the good part is? That people did get together, and you got some of your programs back through an effort. You might not have gotten them all.
Through a community.
Yeah.
Same thing that, the Education Foundation that I've been active in for the last 7 or 8 years, funded the video editing program for after school at the middle school. So we raised that through fundraising efforts.
Right, we had the Athletic Foundation.
And then we, opened up the Rosemary Kafka mini grants for the teachers to apply for small dollar amounts in order to fund things that you guys don't have in the budget at the board to help them provide in their curriculum.
I think, Sue, what these foundations, because I created the athletic foundation, a bunch of my basketball friends, and helped with the library foundation, but I think what it shows is that when Red Bank people get together, we can do a lot.
Absolutely.
So the spirit of cooperation, I think, is exhibited in the foundation for the library, exhibited in the foundation for the athletic foundation for the school. And so I think as we, get out of this economic downturn, I think that Red Bank has a lot to be proud of regarding the spirit of cooperation. Regardless of whether you're the east side, west side, south side, north side, it didn't matter. We all came together to set up these foundations. And again, I think as Dermot, you have a couple of fundraisers coming up in the library this weekend. So, in the spirit of cooperation, open your hearts and open your wallets. And I know it's difficult, but we started this budget process, a number of years ago in hopes of getting transparent. We don't know all the answers. We don't have all the answers. We put everything on the web. We take your suggestions politely. We like the recommendations. We try to implement them. And I think at the same token, you have to give credit to our directors who are here this evening. It's not difficult to stretch a dollar. You all have done a wonderful job with respect to putting this budget together. When you think about it, our operating expenses have gone down, 1%. State aid has gone down. Police department and many other departments have cut their budget so that other departments can share in some of the so-called pie. And I still think that, and this is why I serve, that we have the best town in the state of New Jersey. There's a reason why we were defined as the hippest town in New Jersey. Not only are we cool, but we are hip, but at the same time we have a spirit of cooperation. Each department shines in and of itself. I'm just humbled that, I sit up here with my fellow council people, but I think that everyone has to give you all your credit, and also to thank you. I know everyone, Art and Ed, work closely with you. I'm very proud. I started as a lowly zoning board person and was taught by land use by the expert Don Barr. Not that I know anything now, but I at least am getting around the bases, so to speak, a little better. And that's in large part to Donna, and I think that Donna's grace and willingness to teach me has helped me be a better person, and certainly be a better council person. So, Stanley, I want to thank you and your team. Regina, this is your first at-bat. You did a wonderful job. Please make sure that all of the information is posted on our web site. I don't think there's any other questions.
Well, I had a question.
Sure.
About the pilot with the appraisals.
Yes.
That's privatized, right?
Yeah.
It's not?
Yeah, you want to explain?
The revaluation is a private company,
Yeah.
and then once that reval is done, the assessor then has the authority to change values as he sees fit. 20%, that's also part of the law, requires that 20% of the line items, number of properties in town, every year be inspected 20%. So in essence, in over 5 years, every property has been inspected once. That's privatized also. But the cost of the inspections is less than another revaluation.
So therefore, privatization worked in this case.
Whoa, privatization.
No, actually,
That's
putting
not-
more workload on the assessor worked. Right now, I'm responsible for revaluing all properties
But I
every
think-
year, where we used to hire an outside
But
company.
I think Mr. Hanlon is referring to privatization with,
I just want
Revaluation.
clarification. I don't know the numbers. I just.
no, but what you're saying is privatizing,
Privatize
The
assessor's
revaluation.
job, the assessor's job.
no, but it's more than that. For
No,
example,
I didn't say the assessor's
no.
job.
What he's saying is that we're privatizing, for example, when we do the reval, we have to go out to bid.
Yeah.
When he goes and does whoever the inspection person, we're gonna have to go out and bid. So for example, I just can't say, hey, if I'm the tax assessor, I can say, hey, Mr. Hanlon, your company, Hanlon Chris, you get it. We have to go out to bid and say, okay, hey, look, you know what, we're gonna bid here, the inspection process for 20%. handle an inspection, you come out, DuPont inspection, you come out, and then we open up the bids and see who's the cheapest. So privatization is a little different than going out to bid. And I think that was what your comment was, is that privatization makes that worthwhile. No, what I'm saying to you is that we still have to go out to bid for those services. Private industry does them, but we don't privatize it. For example, that entity is not, for example, privatization like what they did with the DMV. They went out to bid, where they said, okay, look, we're going to take all the DMV services and we're going to give it to Sickles entity, and they run DMV forever for the lease. That's not what happens here. We have to go out to bid, and those inspection services have to be bid before we can award the contract.
It's a service like electrical service or any of the other services that we use.
But we didn't privatize it.
We didn't privatize it.
I just wanted to make sure that.
There's no private.
No, I wanted clarification.
Yeah.
Because the private companies are being used.
Yes, yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's,
for the revaluation.
It's a service that we contract
We always work.
out through a bidding process.
We always do.
It's not being used every year. It's just every,
It's just
less than
specific.
every 10 years or so.
Well, the inspections are being used every
Yeah,
year.
but not
After
every
after
evaluation.
the
After
evaluation.
revaluation.
it's a little confusing.
So.
I only
so-
read one article on it, and it just, I'm sure it's gonna take a few more.
It is, and you know what, it's new to us because it just was instituted a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Well, it's a new format, but I mean, we've had reevaluations through town.
That's
I've
not
had,
what I was referring to. I was referring to the pilot program.
The pilot program specifically.
But it's the inspection,
Yeah.
the service of the inspections is, we would put that out to bid. It'd be a contract service, just like our borough electrician or our force account for sewer repairs. It's a
but it's
service.
awarded to a private company,
Right,
yes.
it's a service contract, but they report, what they gather goes to
I
the
know
assessor.
that, yeah, but it's a private company that we award a bid to gather that information.
Right.
And he uses that information as he sees fit.
Understood.
Okay,
So before it was the county that was, or was, who was doing the evals before that?
No, there was no. What happened is that we either did a reassessment
Okay.
or a revow. So it wasn't like we could say, okay, hey, look, we're just only going to do inspections. This
Yeah.
pilot program is now allowing us to hire a specific vendor to provide those services.
It was a one-time shot every 5 or 10 years. It cost a lot of money
Yeah.
because it wasn't done that often. Now, we do that one-time shot to level the playing field, and then going forward, we can contract out for inspection services. They have to inspect the properties, at least 20% of the properties. They look at all of them, but at least 20 they have to do inspections per year. And then we don't have to do revals anymore because we're doing these inspections, and every 5 years, we would have gotten into every building.
And that might have been my fault when I said county. I didn't mean to say that. But in the old days, as I remember it, before we were able to do it this way, which is a new program, I used to visit every house in Red Bank,
Yeah.
knock on your door and have to come in and walk through your
In
house.
1 year.
I remember that just from living here, you know, just having my own places that they would walk through, they count your bathrooms, they see if you have a finished basement or attic, 2-family or 1-family, and that was the cost. That's what really cost as much. Now, the new pilot program they have, once they get the data and everything, and Mitch, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, the way I understand it, they get all the data and boom, it's easier to maintain.
And I have to change the value each year so that there won't be another revaluation needed. We do it one time, the revaluation, have nice fresh data, and then
So it's a
the
new
assessor
process.
will, if he sees a pocket each year that's too high, too low, he changes it.
You know, allegedly, we're going to eliminate the revow.
Right.
And that's why you're seeing all the revow companies now going into the inspection services, because they realize that theoretically, the town will be revowed within 5 years because the tax assessor has gotten more duties because he has to inspect it every 20% every year. That being said, any other questions?
And listen, I'm going to keep it short. I just want to add something. We've been fighting a budget for 5 years since the governor has come down with the 2% cap and everything else. So we actually struck some hard times 3 years ago, whether it was with our department heads, people being laid off, you know, changing who does what in the borough to make the budgets work. For us to come up with a 2% cap every year, our department heads have done a great job. And you know, Gary, Public Works, they've been operating less and less manpower, and I don't think the manpower has ever really been there in the last 5 years. So I mean, and that goes for the police department, the fire department budget, everybody, you know, from finance down to building. We've deleted people, we gave other people more workload to do, and here we are, like Mike says, 5 years later. I gotta tell you, it's not an easy ride, and I'm pretty proud to say that we've come, these budgets that we've been coming across, that we've done very well with. And, you know, we've been under a lot of strain the last 5 years. I don't have to tell anybody in this room that. And I appreciate your efforts, and I don't expect everybody to understand it, but what I've seen happen over the last 11, 12 years in the council, and what has gone on in the last 4 or 5 years with, you know, stringent budget cuts throughout the state, with the governor, of everybody. It all came down, and a more load was put on each borough, every borough in the state of New Jersey. Every municipality was, the governor gave us more of a workload with less money, and that was the challenge. And I think we've hit that bell. I think we've hit our mark pretty well. And we've lost some good people, but we've got some good people, and that's good stuff. So I appreciate everybody hanging in there and, you know, doing your thing as department heads. I get it, trust me. So thank you.
Stanley?
I'll just add on to that part. I mean, I have to compliment all of our department heads. I mean, they have done a lot more with a lot less, and you've all been doing more job sharing in the last 5 years than I think anybody here in the borough has ever done. And you've done it successfully. So that's a compliment to everybody in the room and all of the folks who work on these staffs. But as Art said, we have worked within the 2% cap. We have done it successfully over the course of the last 5 years, and that's a compliment to the team here on the finance committee.
Stanley, I want to again thank you. All this information will be posted on the web. So again, we're not adopting all this was a presentation, so there will be further discussions and further considerations. So that being said, Stanley and team, thank you very much. And that'll conclude the committee meeting.
Thanks. I just have one quick question from our school board member. In years past, the school board budget had always been presented by Dr. Morana. Will that happen again this year?
I believe acting superintendent and Deborah, the business manager, reached out to do that again. I don't know where we're on what calendar we're on, but we have every intention.
Okay, great.
Does the school budget always get presented, or is it just when they're over budget?
No.
Oh.
Thanks again, Stanley. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you,
I appreciate it.